Every one of us in this room knows what it's like when the radio goes silent. Those seconds that stretch into forever. This isn't theory for us, it's personal. That's why today's conversation matters. Years ago, we were building the largest dam and lock system in the US. The water was over the historic floodplain. We were diving in a 3.5 knot current in zero visibility. A friend and fellow diver was burning out of part of that dam and lock structure when we lost him. I was the DMT on site. I worked on him for 2 hours. He never came back. That day tore a hole through our team, and it lit a fire that's still burning right now. I built Dead Calm Seas from that loss on one belief: no diver should ever pay the ultimate price for a preventable failure. That's why I'm here, to ask a question we can't keep avoiding. Can NORSOC, IMCA, IOGP, or EM385 transform US diving safety, or is it time ADCI evolves into an enforceable law? Standards, enforcement, accountability, every diver home. The US diving industry stands at a crossroad. ADCI has guided us for decades, a legacy of professionalism and skill. For over 5 decades, ADCI has been in our industry compass, built by divers, for divers, grounded in experience, common sense, and field-tested knowledge. It gave us consistency, language, and structure when the industry was still defining itself. But the truth is, ADCI is a guideline and not a regulation. It depends entirely on a voluntary compliance and the good faith of companies. And that's not the same as legal accountability. Technology has evolved, risk management has evolved, but our framework hasn't. Divers are working in challenging and unforgiving conditions, under guidelines that can't be enforced. Voluntary compliance is not enough when lives are on the line. When ADCI was written, our biggest risks were equipment failures and communication. Today, we manage mixed gas operations, complex subsea robotics, saturation systems, and multinational projects where our margin for error is measured in seconds. We've evolved technically, but not structurally. Our rules haven't caught up to our reality. Here's the uncomfortable truth. When 2 companies compete for a contract, one running full compliance, one cutting corners, the cheaper one usually wins. That's not because we don't care. It's because our system doesn't demand a minimum enforceable baseline. Voluntary standards allow safety to become negotiable. This is the moment where we decide, will we continue under guidelines that suggest or evolve into a framework that protects? This is the moment we choose standards, enforcement, accountability, every diver home. Here's a brief look of the topics we'll cover. If you want to see what enforceable standards can do, look at Norway in the 1990s. This obviously hits home for a lot of you. Back then, Norway's offshore oil and gas industry was booming, but so were its accidents. They faced public outrage, worker strikes, growing pressure from international operators. Their solution wasn't another manual or advisory, it was legislation. NORSOC standards, particularly U100 and U103, made risk management a legal requirement. It didn't just tell companies what to do, it fundamentally redefined the approach and mindset. It embedded safety into every phase: planning, execution, and review. It introduced role clarity, documentation traceability, and mandatory drills. It connected data, behavior, and accountability in a way no previous standard had. The ripple effect of that was within years, the incident rates dropped dramatically, near-miss reporting skyrocketed, diver confidence grew because they knew they were protected not by policy, but by law. The result wasn't just safer operations, it was higher productivity and fewer shutdowns. Meanwhile, ADCI became the gold standard in the US, respected globally, based on experience, but where NORSOC was legally binding, ADCI remained advisory. So we built strong habits, but no legal foundation. Our challenge, evolve ADCI to the same level of enforceability, not to erase our heritage, but to protect our people. Norway chose reform after tragedy. We had the chance to do it before the next one. It's time to take what works from the best practices and make it enforceable for standards, enforcement, accountability, every diver home. NORSOC built safety into the DNA of every operation. NORSOC's framework, in my opinion, the 4 pillars, was risk management. No operation started until every hazard was identified, mitigated, and signed off. Documentation standards. Every piece of equipment, every diver, every decision was traceable. Operational structure, there was defined roles, qualified personnel, and redundancy across critical systems. Emergency preparedness, mandatory drills, verified rescue teams, and timed responses. There was a big philosophy shift. Under NORSOC, safety isn't reactive, it's predictive. You don't fix problems after they happen. You anticipate and eliminate them before you even hit the water. This builds a culture where risk assessment isn't paperwork, it's instinct. When divers know the system protects them, they perform better. They report faster and think sharper. It transforms fear into focus. That's the power of moving from a guidance to a governance, from recommendation to regulation, from talk to law. That's standards, enforcement, accountability, every diver home. Let's be clear, the ADCI has been the backbone of American diving for over half a century. We owe it the respect it deserves. It's written by professionals, not bureaucrats. It reflects decades of experience. Many of us in the US owe our safe careers to its guidance. But where it falls short, the problem isn't content, it's compliance. And it hasn't kept pace with the technology or global practice. Without regulatory backing, there's no enforcement. Without enforcement, there's no accountability. And without accountability, even the best intentions can't guarantee safety. Contractors doing the right thing carry higher costs. Those cutting corners can underbid them and still claim ADCI compliance. That's not just unfair, it's unsafe. We've built a system that rewards risk takers and punishes responsibility. The ADCI gave us the framework, now we must give it the force of law. That's how we ensure standards, enforcement, accountability, every diver home. So this data is taken from all the public data. This isn't gathered by any private means. Across 5 years of public data, Norwegian operators under NORSOC show significantly lower incident rates per 100,000 dive hours than US Gulf of Mexico operations under ADCI. As you see, I think there's one glaring difference in this diagram, right? The amount of reporting. In the US, people have a fear of loss of monetary gain. So guys fear for losing their jobs. Companies fear for losing their projects. That's the thing we need to take away. Fewer recordable injuries, fewer lost time accidents, and a culture that has sustainably higher near-miss reporting. Because under NORSOC, near-miss reporting isn't a risk, it's a requirement. They see every close call as a learning opportunity, not a reason for punishment. In the US, we too often bury near misses out of the fear of liability. And in doing so, we bury the lessons that prevent fatalities. When data is transparent, leadership is accountable. When leadership is accountable, systems improve. When systems improve, lives are saved. The difference isn't geography, it's governance. And that's why we need to move from suggestions to statutes, from voluntary to verified, from compliance on paper to safety in practice. That's standards, enforcement, accountability, every diver home. Let me show you what it looks like when a US contractor actually runs NORSOC. There's a culture shift you can feel. And yes, this is my company, but we've had the pleasure of doing this for the last almost 4 years, and I can tell you the difference. Operating under NORSOC, DCS saw a 50% increase in reporting. Not because work got riskier, but because people finally felt safe raising their hand before something went wrong. We created a culture where these guys felt they could say what was going on and be proactive and not reactive. We reframed reporting from blame to learning. That's the upstream safety engine. The operational cadence got smoother. Rigor around documentation, maintenance, and roles streamlined daily operations, fewer surprises, faster completions, less reactive firefighting. Crews and clients noticed the predictability. We've moved from reactive to predictable, smooth operations. The commercial credibility compounds. It's not just the reporting got better. By us taking the leap to go to a higher standard, we've gotten more opportunities. And that's not just in the US, we've gotten opportunities outside the US. That rigor increased client confidence, especially with international operators already aligned with NORSOC IMCA IOGP, which opened doors to higher value projects for us. This isn't theory, this is what happens when it's written into the job standards, enforcement, accountability, every diver home. So after seeing what NORSOC looks like in action, you might ask, what's the real value for the US? Why would adopting its principles matter for our contractors, our divers, and our clients? First, NORSOC changes the safety conversation. It's a traditional setup. Safety often starts after something goes wrong. Under NORSOC, it starts before the diver even hits the water. It builds what we call a proactive safety culture, where risk is assessed, mitigated, and documented in real time. This means fewer surprises, fewer improvisations, and more consistency. Everyone from the project manager to the standby diver knows the playbook, has the authority to stop the job if something doesn't look right. This isn't just safer, it's smarter. It replaces reaction with prevention. And that's how you build a workforce that truly believes in standards, enforcement, accountability, every diver home. The second thing is technology. NORSOC integrates the modern world into diving. It reflects the systems we actually use today. NORSOC doesn't just tolerate technology, it requires it. It ensures data doesn't live in someone's head or on a piece of paper that gets wet. It lives in a digital trail that can be audited, learned from, and improved. That's how we modernize diving for the next generation. And third, sorry, a lot of talking points on this. The reality is, most major oil and gas clients already operate under IMCA, IOGP, or NORSOC requirements internationally. When we don't align, it makes it harder for US contractors to compete for those projects, and it makes it harder for that workforce to align with that if they go and work overseas. I can attest to that. We've been an outlier in a world that's already moved forward. By integrating best practices from international organizations or modernizing ADCI to that level, we make our divers, our companies, and our clients more compatible. It's not about copying Norway. It's about meeting the same global expectation of safety and professionalism. The companies that align early will win better contracts, better margins, and better reputations. This is what it means to lead, not follow, in safety. So when we talk about the advantages of NORSOC, it's not about importing a foreign system. It's about adopting the mindset that saves lives and secures opportunity. Enhanced culture, modern technology, and a global alignment. That's the future of American diving. And that future is built on standards, enforcement, accountability, every diver home. We've proven the model, now we need the mandate. US diving doesn't need a wholesale transplant. We need to elevate ADCI from respected guidance into recognized national standards with legal standing. There are 3 pillars for this reform. Accreditation, transform ADCI from voluntary guidelines into a nationally recognized body whose standards can be referenced by regulators and contracts. 2, give it the regulatory authority, grant enforcement power so minimums aren't optional, and accountability is real across the entire industry. Modernize, require regular updates to integrate technology advances and global best practices from NORSOC, IMCA, IOGP, so the standard never falls behind the work. We need to create a standard that takes best practices from all over the world and has carved out sections for inland, nearshore, offshore, ship's husbandry, engineering. This gives us the opportunity to create a great system and could be one of the best in the world that encompasses all areas of diving. Without recognition or enforcement, compliance lives and dies in a voluntary adoption and client pressure, which creates uneven safety and unfair bidding dynamics. We regulate cranes, arcs, confined space. It's time to regulate diving with the same seriousness. Standards, enforcement, accountability, every diver home. Now let's talk the hard part. What does that implementation look like? Everyone in this room knows great ideas only work if we can afford them, train for them, and regulate them. Under NORSOC, IMCA, IOGP level systems, it isn't free. For a small to mid-sized company, and again, this is something I've gone through, we're probably looking for $200,000 to $500,000, depending on the level that you go. And that's between new equipment, new systems, documentation, and training programs. Retraining crews, qualifying supervisors, verifying competencies, that's a heavy lift, but it's also an investment that builds a career pipeline. We're not just training divers, we're building professionals who understand risk before it happens. Another challenge for this is fragmentation. A handful of companies who already run IMCA, IOGP, or NORSOC style systems, most don't, but without industry-wide adoption, the early adopters face unfair competition. And finally, the gray area in the US. There's still no clear legal standing for these standards that creates confusion for contractors, auditors, and insurers. These aren't roadblocks, they're action items. They're the steps between intention and transformation. If we face them together, we can turn these challenges into change and deliver on our promise of standards, enforcement, accountability, every diver home. Now let's look at these standards where they truly diverge. Under NORSOC, documentation is non-negotiable. Every dive requires a pre-job hazard assessment, real-time operational logs, post-dive analysis, all tied to a tracking system. ADCI, on the other hand, keeps documentation more flexible, built around experience, handwritten logs, and job-specific reporting. It's practical, but not standardized. And when documentation varies, lessons get lost. NORSOC sets precise technical specifications, redundant systems, certified testing intervals, and inspection requirements. ADCI focuses on performance-based reliability that allows each company to adopt maintenance schedules and equipment setups to their operations with a base minimum. The intent is good, flexibility, but without uniform testing, reliability can depend on budget or interpretation. Finally, emergency readiness. NORSOC mandates dedicated rescue teams, simulated drills, defined response times, and standards. ADCI leaves those protocols more open, relying on crew experience and adaptable procedures based on local conditions. Again, it's pragmatic, but inconsistent. When emergency happens, inconsistencies cost seconds, and seconds cost lives. So while ADCI emphasizes flexibility, NORSOC enforces uniformity. The right path isn't choosing one over the other, it's combining ADCI's experience with NORSOC, IMCA, and IOGP's discipline. That's how we achieve standards, enforcement, accountability, every diver home. Legislation takes time. Clients can move the market tomorrow. Our clients are the catalyst. Major energy and infrastructure buyers already drive global alignment. When you hardwire safety into the requirements, into your RFPs and MSAs, the supply chain follows. You have the leverage to move legislation to help our voice be heard. There's 3 concrete pillars or levers to pull is contract requirements. While many of you already do this, put it into your contracts and RFPs. Industry advocacy, we need to get together. We need to use your voice to get together with ADCI, OSHA, and the Coast Guard to recognize a modernized standard and collaborate and bring in global best practices. What happens when the clients leave? The requirements become normalized, early adopters aren't penalized on price, and everyone competes on execution, not cutting corners. That's how we accelerate reform before the statute catches up. Put it in the next RFP, measure it in the next audit, reward it on the next scorecard, lead, and the rest of us will run with you. Standards, enforcement, accountability, every diver home. Here's the roadmap. You'll notice it's not just a couple months long. This is a 3+ year process, but it starts today. That's how we take tragedy and turn it into transformation. And that's how we get standards, enforcement, accountability, every diver home. NORSOC proved enforceable standards save lives. ADCI gave us a foundation to build on. Now it's time for evolution, not competition. We have the knowledge, we have the technology. Now we need the will and the law to protect our people. This is our call to arms. Standards, enforcement, accountability, every diver home. Because if not us, then who? If not now, then when? This is about leadership, not blame. Let's talk about how this happened together. We're open for questions.
I'll stand back, actually, I'll go on the stage. I was getting a lot of back feed before from when I was sort of standing down there. Any quick questions before we move on, please? Yeah, Steve Shepherd again, down from the...
Thank you very much indeed. Just one thing, the sort of elephant in the room is that NORSOC always has had and always continues to have regulatory backing and recognition by the Norwegian regulator. IMCA has always had and continues to have the backing and recognition from the UK Health and Safety Executive. Where's the US Coast Guard?
We have the US Coast Guard and the OSHA, and basically everybody kind of refers to each other. The OSHA mandate hasn't been updated since the 1980s. So it's been a long time, and this is why we're sitting here talking about that. We need to give ADCI some regulatory teeth and have it not just be an association. It needs to become a standard. So that's our issue is our regulatory bodies that are supposed to be involved aren't involved.
How can there be? Is there appetite for it? If they haven't been looked at since the 80s, it seems that there's no real desire to regulate.
Well, that's part of the problem is if we don't stand up now and we don't have the conversation, if we don't go knock on the door, that'll never change. Because if we change and help the US modernize, that also positively impacts the global workforce. I know we have 3,500 divers in the US. That's a lot of divers, and I know a lot of them that go work overseas. I myself was included in that. If we get our standards in line and we ingrain the safety and everything into them from the get-go, it not only impacts the US better, but it also impacts the global workforce better. And again, this is why we need to go knock on that door until they answer and have the conversation. It doesn't matter if they have the appetite for it or not. We at least have to stand up and say there's a problem.
Thank you.
Okay, good. One question up the back. Can we make it kind of quick, please? We're sort of running over time here a little bit. Can you wait? Just get a microphone. We can't quite hear you up here, please.
Considering that the ADC has been a political organization and that most of the divers in the United States, if you ask them their opinion of the ADC, you get a long line of cuss words. Why do you want to take the regulation away from the Coast Guard and OSHA and put it in the hands of the ADC, who's kind of got a checkered past?
Okay, my question back to you would be, why are we going to allow the two organizations that have done nothing for us? And I'll take that and flip it to you again is, every diver, and I am a diver, everyone that I know, yeah, we all cuss the ADCI. And I'm sorry, guys. I love you, but we need more backing. Right now, the ADCI doesn't do anything to benefit the divers, okay? Neither does the Coast Guard or OSHA. We're sitting here, we're losing people on a regular basis. I'm somebody standing here that has been involved in an incident, and we took the stand to say it's enough. And again, I would rather I don't care if it's the ADCI or if it's another body, but the point is we need somebody to step up and say we need to be accountable. We need to modernize. Why has the rest of the world left us behind? Okay? And again, if we don't step up and have uncomfortable conversations, that's never going to happen.
Good, thank you.